Shabbat Shalom, everyone. In this week's Torah portion, we have 53 new commandments. And one of them is the commandment to keep Shabbat. It says 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day should be a day of rest, holy to Hashem. But actually, in last week's Torah portion, we had the 10 commandments, and commandment number 4 was to keep Shabbat. So what is the difference between Shabbat in last week's Torah portion versus Shabbat in this week's Torah portion? And here we find this slight difference. In last week's Torah portion, the 10th commandment says, commandment number 4, remember the day of Shabbos to make it holy. 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day you shall rest. It begins with Shabbat, remember the day of Shabbat to make it holy. Then it says work 6 days, and then it says you shall rest on the 7th day. But in this week's Torah portion, it begins by saying 6 days you shall work, and then rest on the 7th day. What's the difference if you start with Shabbat and then 6 days you shall work, versus if you start with 6 days you shall work and then Shabbat you shall rest? So the rabbis say that the Talmud discusses a person who got lost in the desert. Today you could say a person who's in captivity or in imprisonment, and they lost track of time and they don't know when Shabbat is. So there's two opinions in the Talmud what to do. One opinion says when the person realizes he lost track of time, he should keep a day of Shabbat and then count 6 days, and he should start his own cycle of Shabbat. But the second opinion in Talmud says, no, don't keep Shabbat and then count 6 days. First, count 6 days and work, or do not rest. And then the 7th day, you shall keep a day of Shabbat. What's the difference if you start with Shabbat and then count 6 days, versus if you start with 6 days, you shall work, and then you go to Shabbat? So rabbis say the difference is the way God experienced Shabbat versus the way the first human being experienced Shabbat. God experienced Shabbat. First he worked 6 days and then he rested on the 7th day. But Adam and Eve were created on Friday. First they experienced Shabbat and then they worked for 6 days. What's the message and the theological, psychological difference between starting with a day of holiness and then working 6 days versus working 6 days and then keeping Shabbat? So we know in life, most things require effort, preparation, training, developing proper habits and traits. I just came back from Vail, Colorado, skiing. If you want to know how to ski, you got to do a lot of practice. You got to go to ski school. You can't just get onto the mountain and start skiing. That's the normal order. 6 days you work and then you come to the day of Shabbat. But there are some lucky moments in life where a person is given an opportunity to start with Shabbat. A moment of holiness, a moment of great inspiration, a moment of great awakening, an amazing opportunity to start from the top of the mountain, to start with the holiness of Shabbat. This Shabbat we're going to bless the month of Adar. Adar, of course, is the month of Purim. And this year we have 2 Adars. It's a leap year, so we have 60 days of joy of Adar, the joyous month of Adar. It's all about Megillat Esther, Queen Esther, the scroll of Esther. She had an opportunity to save the Jewish people miraculously. It, so to speak, came to her, that opportunity. And the Torah is saying to us, be prepared to work hard and develop the characteristics and the traits to experience the Shabbat, the sacredness of life. First you have to work 6 days, but when those moments of Shabbat come along, where you could seize Shabbat without even preparation, be ready for those great spiritual awakenings as well. It's a story told about a Jew who was imprisoned by a paretz, a feudal landowner, and he told him, I can grant you 1 day off. 1 day you could go home and be with your family. So he wrote to his rabbi, which day should I take? Should I take Yom Kippur? Should I take Rosh Hashanah? Should I take Passover? Should I take my anniversary? Should I take my children's birthday? And the rabbi responded to him and said, take the first available day. That is your first opportunity to go home and be with your family. Yes, we have to work towards the great moments of life, but at the same time, the Torah says, Shabbat can be right now. You can experience holiness and sanctity and spiritual connection this